My daughter refused to pay my $50,000 0-cent surgery bill. It's not our problem. The next morning, she was screaming outside my lawyer's office. I woke up in the hospital with the clinical tang of antiseptic lingering in the air, the harsh overhead lights casting sterile halos against the ceiling tiles. The beeping of the monitors echoed around me like a metronome counting down time I had not asked for. My chest was tight, not from pain, at least not the kind doctors diagnose, but from a hollow weight that felt older than my bones. I blinked slowly, trying to piece together where I was and why my body felt like it had been emptied and filled with something colder. I turned my head to the side and spotted my phone on the rolling tray next to the bed. My fingers trembled as I reached for it. The screen was lit with a new message. Remaining balance after insurance, $50,000, 0 cents. I closed my eyes. I already knew what the message meant, but seeing the number hurt in a different way. I took a deep breath and tapped the contact labeled Anna, daughter. It rang once, then twice. She picked up, her voice sharp, distracted. "Hello, Mom? What is it now?" My voice was weak, dry. "Sweetheart, I just got out of surgery. They said it was successful, but the insurance didn't cover everything. I may need a little help. It's about $50,000. There was silence on the other end. Then the explosion. "50,000? Are you out of your damn mind? What do you think you're doing in there, buying a new set of organs? You really expect us to cover that? Seriously, what are you, a scam artist now?" I sat up slowly, my body resisting every movement. I would not ask if it were not necessary. They said the procedure was urgent. Oh, urgent. Of course they did. That's how hospitals work, Mom. They upsell you into surgeries and you fall for it because you're old and alone. And now you want us to foot the bill? Not a chance. I tried to explain. "It's not like that," but she cut me off. "This is what you do. You wait until there's a crisis, then you throw it in our faces like we owe you something. $50,000? That's more than we make in 6 months. What are you doing to us?" I heard her husband's voice in the background, not even bothering to whisper. She probably Googled some random condition and made it up. Let her rot. The phone slipped slightly in my hand, but I held it tighter. My voice was a whisper. "I'm not lying. I didn't ask for this." Anna laughed. Cold, brittle, nothing like the girl I raised. "You never do you? It's always someone else's fault. Maybe if you had planned better, you would not be in this situation. You knew you were getting old. You should have taken better care of yourself. Maybe buy long-term care insurance instead of those stupid ceramic figurines you used to collect." My chest tightened. I swallowed hard. "You're my daughter, Anna." You thought wrong," she snapped. "You gave birth to me. That was your decision, not mine. I didn't ask to be born, and I sure as hell didn't sign up to pay your debts." The line went dead. I sat there, the silence louder than the machines around me. I did not cry. I just stared at the ceiling as if trying to remember where I went wrong. Not in raising her, I did everything I knew how, but maybe in expecting her to be someone she never was. The door creaked open, and a young nurse stepped inside. She adjusted my IV, checked my chart, then glanced at me. "Is there anyone we should call, ma'am?" I shook my head. No one." She paused, her eyes kind. She reached for my phone, placed it gently back on the tray, and gave my hand a small squeeze. Then she left. I lay there for hours, watching shadows shift on the ceiling. The hushed hum of the monitors felt deafening against that stillness. I thought about Anna as a little girl, her pigtails bouncing as she ran toward me after school. I remembered how she used to draw me pictures with crayon hearts and flowers. I remembered late nights helping her through college exams, wiring money we did not have so she would not go hungry. And now I was a line item on her expense sheet, a liability to be denied. By dawn, I had made a decision, a quiet, clean decision, not out of anger, though I would have been justified, but out of clarity. This was no longer my daughter. This was someone else entirely, a stranger in my bloodline. They thought I would stay weak, that I would fade away quietly, that I would rot, just like he said. But they forgot something. I survived a war. I buried a husband. I raised a child through poverty and grief and loneliness. And if I had to walk through fire one more time, I would. But this time, I would walk through it alone, and I would come out burning brighter than they ever imagined. That morning, I signed the discharge papers myself. I told the doctors I was going home. But I was not going home. I was going to war. The morning sun leaked through the slats of the hospital blinds, streaking my room with tired gold. I was just beginning to doze off when the door slammed open so hard it rattled the clipboard at the end of my bed. Anna stormed in like a thunderclap, her heels clicking, her sunglasses still on, and fury radiating off her in waves. In one hand, she held a wrinkled printout, clutched like a weapon. I knew what it was before she even opened her mouth. "How much longer is she staying here?" she barked, directing the question not at me, but at the nurse checking my vitals. "Because this," she flung the paper toward my chest, "this is costing us money. And for what? Some overnight sleepovers on oxygen and sympathy?" The nurse froze, her hand halfway to adjusting my monitor. She glanced at me, then at Anna, unsure whether to respond. Anna stepped closer to my bed, looking down like I was a stray animal blocking her drive. "Just pull the plug if she passes out again," she muttered. "I'm not funding another pity party." A gasp came from the young nurse by the monitors. She actually gasped, audibly, and then covered her mouth, like she could not believe the words had left Anna's lips. The doctor, who had walked in behind her, stood there, stunned into silence, holding my chart. I did not say anything. My mouth was dry. My heart, already fragile, thudded like a dropped teacup. Anna finally turned her full attention to me. She yanked off her sunglasses, leaned in so close I could feel her breath. Her eyes were hard like winter glass. "You're a black hole, Mom," she hissed, just for me to hear. "You suck love, money, and energy from everyone around you. You always have, and now you want more? Always more. Even from a hospital bed, you're still leeching." I tried to speak, to say her name, to remind her of something, anything that might make her remember who I was, but she raised her hand to cut me off, sharp and cruel like a slap without the contact. "You gave birth to me. Big whoop," she spat. "That was your choice, not my debt." Each word landed like a brick. I felt them piling on top of me, one by one, making it hard to breathe. I wanted to ask her why. I wanted to ask what I had done to make her hate me this much, or when exactly her love had expired. But I already knew. I had nothing left to offer. Behind her, her husband stood just inside the doorway. He did not speak. He just looked down at the floor, adjusting his watch like he was waiting for this whole scene to end. No shame, no shock, just bored. Anna reached into her purse, pulled out a crisp manila envelope, and dropped it onto the tray beside my IV. "Sign the DNR," she said flatly. "Make it easy for everyone." I stared at the envelope like it was a loaded gun. My hand twitched. "Anyway," she continued, "next time you try to guilt trip us into saving you, we can just nod and move on. You'd like that, right? Peaceful. No fuss." I turned my head away. I could not look at her anymore. I focused instead on the ceiling tile above my head. One had a small brown water stain in the shape of a bird. She clicked her tongue in disgust. "You never change. Always the martyr. Fine, stay here. Rot if you want. But do not expect a single damn cent." She turned on her heel and walked out, her heels clicking once again, this time a funeral march. Her husband followed, his silence a second insult. When the door shut behind them, I did not cry. I wanted to. God knows I had tears built up over decades, but I refused to give them that, even if they were not there to see it. The nurse stepped back into view, eyes wide and red. I am so sorry, ma'am. I don't think... I've never heard anyone speak to their mother like that." I tried to smile. It came out crooked and hollow. "She used to be gentle," I whispered. "When she was little. She used to hold my hand when she was scared." The nurse took a breath and gently placed her hand over mine. Her touch was soft. "Careful. The way you touch something you do not want to break. You deserve better," she said quietly. I did not answer. I just stared at the DNR packet on the tray beside me. The beige envelope sat there like an unspoken ultimatum. She wanted me to sign away my own rescue, to make my death convenient for her. That was the moment it became clear. This was not about the money. It was not about the surgery, it was not even about guilt, it was about erasure. She wanted me gone. Off her books, out of her life, not with a scream, not even with a fight, just quietly, like turning off a light. And that I would never give her. Before I became a burden with a price tag, I was the woman who held everyone together. I was head nurse at one of the busiest hospitals in Reno for nearly 25 years. I worked double shifts when needed. I was calm when others panicked, precise when things got bloody. I held strangers' hands as they took their last breaths and wiped the brows of mothers giving birth. I was proud of that work. I didn't wear makeup, didn't own expensive clothes, but when I put on my scrubs, I knew who I was. I mattered. But life has a funny way of folding you into silence. When my husband fell ill, pancreatic cancer, stage 4, I did not hesitate. I retired early, not because I wanted to stop working, but because he needed me. He had taken care of our family all his life. Now it was my turn. I fed him through tubes, cleaned him when he lost control of his body, and stayed up every night to catch his groans before they turned into screams. He died after 11 years of slow, grueling decay. I stayed beside him through every breath. Anna was in college when it started. I sent her checks every month, money from savings, money I should have kept for myself. I never let her see how thin I was stretching things. She graduated debt-free. I remember how proud she was when she framed her diploma, how she cried when I handed her the keys to her first car, an old Honda but paid in full by me. She hugged me that day. She said, "You're the only reason I made it." Funny how time shaves those words down to dust. When she decided to open her first spa, she came to me with sparkles in her eyes and a pitch deck printed on glossy paper. Her hands trembled as she asked, Would you believe in me enough to invest?" I did not hesitate. I sold my engagement ring, my last real tie, to the man I had buried. I pawned the gold bracelet my grandfather gave me when I turned 15. I handed her a cashier's check for $18,000, 0 cents, and told her, "This is yours, but make it matter." The spa failed within 8 months. The landlord raised rent, and Anna had hired too many friends who didn't show up to work on time. She was devastated. I held her while she cried on my shoulder and said, "I failed you." "No," I told her, "failure is temporary. Love is not." A year later, she tried again. A second spa, in a better location. This time, she needed $25,000, 0 cents. I pulled out what little was left from my retirement. I even dipped into an emergency account I had been building since before she was born. The second spa lasted longer, 2 years. Then her husband lost his job, and they started using the business account to float their household bills. It collapsed quietly like a tired balloon. Still, I said nothing. But the third time she came asking for $40,000, 0 cents, I finally said no. I was 71. My knees ached, my vision blurred more often than I admitted. I knew I would not have many years left to fix my own future if I gave her what little remained of it. She did not cry that time. She glared. "You always held money over my head," she snapped. "That's toxic. I see it now. You give so you can control." I stood there, stunned. My lips parted, but no words came out. Control? She had lived in my house, rent-free for 5 years, while she built her first business. I cooked, cleaned, and watched her kids, so she and her husband could network. I gave and gave and gave, not because I wanted anything, but because I believed that is what mothers do. But in her eyes, I was no longer generous. I was manipulative, toxic. From that day on, the tone changed. She stopped calling as often, started posting vague quotes online about cutting out draining people. On holidays, I was invited late, seated near the kitchen, and left off the group photos. When I decided to sell my old house and move into a small one-bedroom apartment downtown, I thought it would ease the tension. I said, "I do not want to impose. You have your own life now." She smirked and said, "Figures. You've always been emotionally unavailable. No wonder Dad got sick." That one gutted me. Not because it was true, but because it was so profoundly unfair. I had wiped her father's vomit for years. I had slept in hospital chairs, bathed him when nurses could not, kissed his temple even when he forgot my name. But in her version of events, I had somehow caused his illness by being distant, cold. She needed a villain, and it was convenient. Over time, the language shifted completely. She no longer said Mom. She started saying you, like a stranger. You never helped unless it was on your terms. You made me feel small every time I succeeded. You drained me with your expectations. I once offered to watch the kids for a weekend, so she and her husband could travel. She declined with a laugh and said, "No offense, but you do not really connect with them. It would be weird." Weird? I had changed her diapers, held her hand through nightmares, cared for her newborns while she recovered. Now, I was weird. I remember one night when her youngest had a fever of 104. She called me, frantic, asking what to do. I drove over, brought ice packs, cold towels, medicine, and soup. I stayed up with the child so she could sleep. In the morning, she barely looked at me as she said, "Thanks. I guess it's nice to have someone around who used to be a nurse." Used to be. As if I had lost every ounce of value the moment I stopped handing her money. Over the years, she revised history in her mind until I was no longer the woman who had sacrificed, but the woman who had failed. Failed to be perfect, failed to save her father, failed to fund her third failed dream. In her mind, I was the root of her disappointments. And slowly, but surely, I began to believe it too. Until now. Until that call. Until that hospital bed where I lay with stitches on my side and venom in my ears. It took me all those years to realize she never loved me unconditionally. She loved me conveniently. And the moment I stopped being useful, I became disposable. It was my granddaughter's 6th birthday party, a sunny Saturday afternoon wrapped in pink balloons, glitter crowns, and store-bought smiles. The backyard had been transformed into something from a Pinterest board. Pastel streamers, themed cupcakes, and one of those elaborate bouncy castles that made you feel like a child again just looking at it. Kids ran around, laughing, squealing, parents chatting politely over iced tea. Music played low from a Bluetooth speaker on the patio. I arrived 10 minutes early, holding a small, neatly wrapped box and wearing a cardigan I had knitted myself for the occasion. It was lavender, her favorite color, and soft enough for even the pickiest child to love. I had made the doll inside by hand, every stitch, every tiny dress sewn to match her favorite cartoon character. I had even embroidered her name into the corner of the doll's apron. I was proud of it, not because it was fancy, but because it was mine. Mine for her. When I rang the doorbell, no one answered. After a minute, I let myself into the backyard through the side gate. No one noticed. I stood there awkwardly, watching the commotion, holding the gift like a passport no one wanted to check. Finally, I caught sight of Anna. She was laughing with 2 other mothers, wine in hand, sunglasses perched on her head like a crown. When she saw me, her expression barely shifted, just the tiniest flicker of annoyance, as though I were a misplaced lawn ornament. "Oh," she said, walking over, "you came." "I was invited," I replied gently, holding up the gift. "For Emma." She took the box without looking at it and handed it to someone else. "Gifts go on the table. The one with the sign." She led me toward the seating area. Most of the tables were already full, round folding tables covered in plastic cloths with assigned name cards written in glitter ink. I scanned the names. There was no card for me. Anna gestured toward a table by the kitchen window, a folding card table with a single plastic chair. It was half covered in serving trays and stacked napkins. A few paper plates were still sticky with cake. "Here's good," she said, already walking away. I sat. For the next 20 minutes, I watched everyone eat and laugh. Someone started playing a slideshow on the patio screen. Emma's family through the years. Soft music, baby photos, beach vacations, birthday cakes. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, dozens of photos, not one of me. Not a single image. Even in the group shots, I had been cropped or forgotten. I was a ghost in a family I helped build. I waited until the music softened. Then, when Anna walked by to refill her glass, I asked quietly, "No pictures of me, honey?" She paused, blinked behind her sunglasses, then smiled, tight, thin, mechanical. "Oh," she said, "I didn't think you were, family core material." I felt something shift inside me. Not break. Not yet. just shift. When it was time for Emma to open her presents, everyone gathered around, camera phones at the ready. She tore through boxes with wild joy, electronic toys, glittery clothes, big plastic sets that made noise and broke after a week. Anna handed her the box I brought. "This one's from Grandma," she said, her tone as flat as week-old soda. Emma unwrapped it quickly, pulling out the handmade doll. For a second, she smiled, but Anna chuckled, just loud enough. "That's cute. Maybe it'll live in the attic." A few nearby mothers laughed politely. Emma looked confused. She turned the doll over in her hands, as if trying to find something wrong with it. Then she placed it down and reached for the next gift. I did not move. I just sat there, my hands folded in my lap, the same way I used to sit in church when I was a girl, pretending not to feel hurt when the world turned its back on me. After a while, one of the mothers, someone I barely knew, sat down next to me. "That doll was lovely," she whispered. I turned to her, blinking. "Thank you." "She'll appreciate it one day," she said. I nodded, though I did not believe it. When it was time to sing Happy Birthday, Anna forgot to include me in the family photo. She waved the photographer over, gathered everyone on the deck steps, and said, "Just immediate family." I stood behind the bushes, pretending to look for my purse. I left early. No one noticed. As I walked to my car, I could still hear laughter behind me. Anna's voice rose above the others, light and unbothered. I sat behind the wheel for a long time, the doll's empty box still sitting on the passenger seat. I ran my fingers over the edge, felt the grooves where I had folded the wrapping paper so carefully. I was not angry, not yet, but something inside me had changed. I was not invisible. I had just become inconvenient. And I knew then. I was done playing the role they had written for me. I had spent decades stitching their dreams together, patching holes they had torn, warming their nights while freezing in silence. But they did not want warmth. They wanted someone to disappear quietly, without complaint, without cost, and I was not going to give them that. Not anymore. It was during a routine checkup that the doctor first mentioned the possibility of a minor laparoscopic procedure. Nothing life-threatening, just something preventative, an outpatient surgery to explore and correct a possible hernia. He said, "You're healthy for your age, but it would be better to take care of this now before it becomes something serious." I asked how long the recovery would be. "A day or two of monitoring, nothing intensive." I nodded slowly, my eyes fixed on the calendar pinned behind his desk. There was nothing urgent waiting for me at home. No one would notice if I rested for a few days. No one would ask how it went. And in that silence, I saw an opening, not for sympathy, but for truth. I agreed to the surgery, but not because I feared what might happen if I did not. I agreed because something deeper had already ruptured inside me, and I needed answers, not from a doctor, but from life itself. I needed to know, what was I worth to the people I had given my life to if they thought I was about to leave it? That night, I began my performance. I moved slower around the house, letting myself shuffle instead of walk. I forgot to reply to texts for days. I paused in the middle of sentences during phone calls, feigning confusion. I left the stove on once, not long enough to be dangerous, just enough to be mentioned. I started using a cane I did not need, and when Anna called, rare as that was, I let my voice sound weaker than it was. Breathier. Fading. She never asked if I was okay. She only asked if I had finalized my will. The first time she mentioned it, we were on the phone. I was sitting on my porch, sipping tea and watching the wind move the neighbor's laundry. "I'm just saying," she said. "It would be smart to get your affairs in order. You don't want things to get messy later, especially with the house." The house. Always the house. I told her I would take care of it, that I did not want to leave her and her husband with a legal mess. She thanked me like she was thanking a bank clerk for confirming a deposit. The next day, I visited my lawyer. We drafted a new will. Everything went to charity, to community organizations, to a scholarship fund for young girls aging out of the foster system. Not one penny to Anna, not one item, not even the vase she always admired. Then I had cameras installed, small ones, discreet, tucked into corners and vents and behind picture frames. I told the installer I was worried about burglaries. He nodded, not asking questions. I chose the best angles, the living room, the kitchen, the entryway, and one in my bedroom aimed at the door. I wanted to see them. I wanted the world to see. I sent Anna a message the next morning. The surgery is scheduled. I've begun planning everything so no one will be inconvenienced. Her reply came 3 hours later. No question about my health, no offer to visit, just, "Good. Let me know where the paperwork is in case anything happens." That evening I moved slowly through my home, pausing at the photos still left on the walls. Most were Emma. Some were old shots of Anna as a child, smiling, sun-kissed, holding a lollipop or a book or a puppy. None of them showed the woman who had asked me to sign a DNR without flinching. I did not cry. I was past that now. Instead, I sat down at my dining table and wrote 3 letters. The first was to my lawyer, confirming my intentions and including copies of the new will. The second was to a friend I had not seen in years, a retired teacher who now ran a local youth shelter. I told her that if anything happened to me, I wanted her to use the money to build something lasting. "Name it whatever you want," I wrote. "Just make sure it's warm and kind and full of the kind of love we keep giving even when it's never returned." The third was Anna. I did not explain myself. I simply wrote, "If you are reading this, I am gone. And you have already made peace with that. I know because you practiced." I folded the letter, sealed it, and put it in the drawer where she would find it easily, right beside the insurance papers she cared so much about. On the morning of the surgery, I dressed slowly, not because I was in pain, but because I wanted to feel every moment. I ran my fingers over the edge of my bed. I watered the plants. I left the blinds slightly open, letting in the soft Nevada light. At the hospital, the nurse asked if anyone would be coming to wait for me. "No," I said. She did not press. The surgery went fine, exactly as expected. They wheeled me into recovery with a warm blanket and the usual post-op haze. I heard voices around me, nurses checking vitals, machines ticking. No phone calls, no flowers, not even a text. It was quiet, too quiet, but in that silence I found something I had not felt in a long time. Control. For the first time in years, I was not begging for love. I was documenting its absence. That night, I lay in the hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the moments that brought me here. Every sacrifice, every insult, every time I had said yes when I wanted to scream enough. Tomorrow, I will go home. Not to rest, but to finish what I started. Let them think I was dying. Let them say their cruelest truths when they thought I was too weak to stop them. Let the cameras roll. The world would see what they were. And when it was done, I would no longer need to speak. The truth would speak for me. 3 days after I was discharged from the hospital, Anna came by the house. She did not knock. She never did anymore. The door creaked open like it had been forced, and I heard her footsteps long before I saw her face. Sharp, impatient, like she was late for something more important than this. I was sitting on the couch, a blanket over my legs, a book open in my lap. I did not look up until she spoke. "So," she said, her purse still hanging from her shoulder, "you made it?" I closed the book softly and set it aside. "I suppose I did," I replied. She looked around the room like it offended her. The house was clean as always. The same doily she once spilled wine on still sat under the vase of dried hydrangeas. The air was filled with quiet and peppermint oil. "You look better," she said, though her tone made it sound like an accusation. "I am better," I said. "The surgery was nothing serious after all, just a precaution." She huffed. "Well, good thing you made all that noise about it, right? Had everyone worried for nothing." "Did I?" I asked. "I do not remember anyone being worried." She opened her mouth to reply, then thought better of it. She sat down across from me, resting her bag beside her like she was preparing for a short, necessary meeting. There was a long silence. Then I asked, as gently as I could, "If one day I didn't wake up, would you miss me?" She blinked. Her mouth twitched, and for a moment I saw the girl she used to be. The child who used to climb into my bed at night when the thunder scared her. The girl who once cried because she thought I had forgotten to kiss her goodnight. But that girl was gone. What sat across from me now was a woman who did not hesitate. "No," she said, "I'd be relieved, not guilty, just finally done." The words hung in the air, heavier than anything I had ever lifted in my life. I felt them settle over me like ash. I nodded slowly. "Thank you for being honest." She tilted her head, confused. "What? You asked?" "I did," I said. "And now I know." She crossed her legs and looked away, clearly uncomfortable. "You've always been dramatic," she muttered. "Even now, asking questions like that, it's manipulative." I let the silence return, let it stretch until it made her shift in her seat. She glanced at her watch. "I cannot stay long," she said. "I just came by to check that the paperwork was in order. For, the inevitable." "It's all in the drawer," I said. "Right where you told me to put it." She stood, adjusting her blouse. "Okay, well, I guess that's it." I stood as well, slower but steady. "Thank you for coming." She started to walk toward the door, but I called out to her before she could leave. "Anna?" She turned. "You have made yourself very clear," I said softly. "And I want you to know I heard you." "All of it." She gave a dismissive little nod. "Good." Then she was gone. I stood in the living room for a long while after that, staring at the spot where she had sat, the indentation on the couch, the slight smudge from her heel on the rug. Proof that she had been there, proof that she had spoken those words. I had asked a question I already knew the answer to, but hearing it aloud gave me something I had not realized I needed. Permission. Permission to stop chasing. Permission to stop explaining. Permission to be done. That night I sat down at my desk and opened the folder with the footage. Every camera had captured something. The rolling eyes, the muttered insults, the moments she thought I was not listening, the cruel laughter, the DNR, the party humiliation, the not family core material. It was all there. But most of all, her voice, on my porch, saying the words that scorched everything clean. I'd be relieved, not guilty, just finally done. I did not need to embellish. I did not need to defend myself. All I had to do was share what was already true. So I wrote a message. Not to her, but to someone else. An old acquaintance of mine who had once worked in media and now ran a popular social channel about caregiving, family abuse, and elder neglect. We had not spoken in years, but I remembered how she had once told me, "If you ever want to tell your story, call me." I sent her the footage. I did not edit it. I did not explain it. I just wrote one sentence. "Here is what it looks like when a mother becomes an obligation." Then I logged off and went to bed. I slept better than I had in years. The truth was no longer my burden to carry. Now it was hers. I did not expect anything to happen overnight. Truth, I've learned, does not always scream its way into the light. It often waits, quietly, like a storm in the desert. But this time, the storm came faster than I thought. 3 days after I sent the footage, I received a call. It was the young nurse from the hospital, the only one who had looked at me with kindness, not pity. "I hope I'm not crossing any lines," she said gently, "but I watched the clips you shared, and I know someone who needs to see them. She runs a channel, nothing tabloid, I promise, just real stories about family trauma and generational wounds. She's a good person. I wouldn't bring it up if I didn't think it mattered." I was silent for a moment, then I said, "Let her watch it." And so it began. I shared it with someone who had once worked in media and still had contacts in content distribution. She understood that raw truth travels farther than polished stories. The footage became a 5-minute short film titled "Based on True Pain." No names, no locations. 2 scenes. A mother left in a hospital bed alone, a birthday party where she is seated near the trash, a daughter dropping a DNR packet onto a tray, and a final voiceover, my own words, quiet, steady. I gave birth to her. I gave everything to her, and when I could give no more, I became less than nothing. The video did not name Anna, but it did not need to. It spread faster than I expected. The name OMAF, she says, feeling despairingly. At first, just small circles, caregivers, elder support forums, Facebook groups of retired nurses. Then wider. People commented things like, "This made me call my mom. I can't believe people like this exist. It hurts because it's real." I watched silently as it climbed into the thousands, then hundreds of thousands of views. I never told Anna about it. I did not have to, because Anna told the world herself. She commented on the video. Under her real account, no burner profile, no alias, just her, in all her indignation, writing, "Wow, this is just like my mom. She faked a heart surgery too, played the victim every chance she got, left out all the times she manipulated me. Typical." It was perfect. A confession without prompting. In her rush to deflect, she revealed the truth. She confirmed what no caption had named. The internet noticed. Commenters responded fast. "Wait, so you're the daughter? No one said this was about you until you did. Thanks for confirming." It snowballed from there. People looked deeper. Screenshots were taken, her public posts compared to scenes in the video, her own words matched quotes from the footage. The patterns aligned, the puzzle pieces fit, and once the internet sees something, it cannot unsee it. Then came the real consequences. Within days, the nonprofit she had partnered with, the one where she spoke on panels about supporting the aging population and the importance of intergenerational compassion, issued a public statement. Effective immediately, we are discontinuing our relationship with Anna M. due to concerns raised by recent public behavior that contradicts our mission and values. Sponsors dropped her. Speaking engagements vanished. Emails she sent went unanswered. Her name, once linked to heartwarming advocacy posts, now trailed hashtags like elder neglect and performative compassion. She deleted her comment, but it was too late. Screenshots lived forever. I sat at my kitchen table, watching it unfold on my tablet, sipping tea. Not smug, not vindicated, just still, just quiet. I did not post a single thing. I did not clap back or speak up or try to correct her narrative. She had undone herself. By her own hand, the very behavior she thought the world would excuse had been exposed, not by me, but by her own arrogance. I received a message that evening from someone I didn't know, a middle-aged woman in Michigan. She wrote, "I watched the video. I cried. Then I showed it to my daughter. We talked for 2 hours. Thank you, whoever you are. Thank you." I closed the tablet and looked out the window, where the last sliver of sunlight was slipping behind the desert hills. This was not revenge. This was not rage. This was justice, the kind that arrives not with shouts, but with echoes. Because when someone shows the world who they are, all you have to do is let them speak. And the world listens. The morning after her comment went viral, I called my lawyer. He answered on the first ring. "Are you sure?" he asked, calm but firm, like someone confirming a last wish. "I'm sure," I said. "List the house, effective immediately." The house, the one she and her husband had been living in for the past 6 years rent-free, was still legally mine. I had offered it as a gesture of goodwill, a place for them to start fresh after their second bankruptcy. I never asked for rent, utilities, not even groceries. I simply gave them keys and told them, make it a home. They did. They just forgot it was mine. My lawyer drafted the official eviction notice that same day. It was clear, legal, and cold, in the best way. Notice to vacate, 30 days from receipt. No wiggle room, no negotiation. The documents were hand-delivered by a process server. I imagined the sound of her heels on the floor as she approached the door, the way Anna's face must have fallen as she read the words. She called me 13 times that afternoon. I did not answer. By evening, she was at my door. She did not knock right away. I saw her through the peephole, standing still, breathing fast, the envelope still in her hand. Then came the knock. 3 quick taps. I opened the door slowly, already knowing what I would see. Her face pale, mascara smudged, voice shaking. "Mom," she said. Her voice cracked on the word, like she hadn't used it in years. "Please, I was wrong. I was so wrong." She dropped to her knees right there on my porch. "I know I've hurt you. I know what I said was unforgivable. But I've lost everything. The foundation, the sponsorships, they pulled everything. I have no one left." I didn't speak. She looked up at me, tears on her cheeks. "Mom, please, help me. Just a place to stay until we figure things out. Please, I'm begging you." I reached into the pocket of my cardigan and pulled out the letter I had written weeks ago, the final one. I handed it to her. On the front, in a tidy script, it said, "To my daughter, who asked to be unborn." She opened it with shaking fingers. Her lips moved as she read silently. You wanted to pretend I never gave birth to you. Wish granted. Legally, she looked up at me, stunned. I'm not doing this out of hate, I said gently. I'm doing this because I finally understand the difference between forgiveness and enabling. I forgive you, Anna, truly, but I will not save you. She shook her head. You can't mean that. You're my mother. No, I said. I was your mother until you chose to burn that bridge, and I chose not to rebuild it. She cried harder, the kind of cry that comes when the world stops orbiting around you, the kind of cry that comes too late. Mama, she whispered. I knelt slowly, my knees old but not weak. I took her hands in mine. I forgive you, Anna, but I am choosing to live the rest of my life in peace, not... She stayed on the porch after I closed the door, but I didn't look back. 3 weeks later, I signed over the house to a local women's shelter. They planned to turn it into transitional housing for older women displaced by abuse or financial manipulation. I told them, make it warm, make it safe, to make sure they know they're not alone. I also established a scholarship fund, the Daughters They Despised Foundation. It would support women over 50 who had been cut off, cast aside, or emotionally discarded by their own families. For therapy, for housing, for education, for dignity. The foundation's motto was simple: you are not too old to start again. I received hundreds of letters. Women from all over the country who had seen the video, read the story, heard the whispers. They shared their own versions of my pain. Abandoned after surgeries, ridiculed for aging, forgotten after giving everything. Each letter felt like a pebble on a growing mountain of truth, and I kept every one. I moved to a quiet town in Nevada. Desert winds, big skies, and long silences. I bought a small cottage on the edge of town with a porch that caught the morning sun just right. There, I started a weekly art class called The Quiet Matriarch. No experience required, just a safe space to paint what could not be said, to shape with clay the things we had no more words for. We did not talk about our children unless we wanted to. Most of us didn't. We just let the silence hold what history could not. One afternoon, as the desert heat curled up through the floorboards and the students had gone home, I sat at my easel painting a cactus bloom. A local journalist had asked if I wanted to do an interview. I'm not a headline, I said. No, she replied. You're the reason people are looking at their mothers differently. I smiled. When the final clip of the original video was reposted to mark its 1-year anniversary, they asked if they could add one line from me. I wrote it in pen, folded it neatly, and sent it in. And so the last frame of the video, the one that had started it all, now ends with these words, spoken softly over a still image of a closed front door. They told me I should die to stop being a burden, but I lived, not to get revenge, but to let them destroy themselves. With their words, with their greed, with their own ungrateful hearts. Fade to black. If this story made your heart ache, if it reminded you of something you've buried, or someone you've finally learned to let go of, then you've found the right porch to sit on. Here at Grandma, True Stories, we don't shout, we remember. We speak the truths they once told us to keep quiet, the betrayals, the silence, the sacrifices no one clapped for. And we do it not for pity, but for clarity. Because sometimes the strongest revenge is survival. If you want more stories like this from the quietest woman in the room, then subscribe, tap the bell, and pull up a chair. This is where the forgotten are finally heard. This is Grandma True Stories, and I'm just getting started.